What's happening, everybody? Off the top rope, off the Mike Sports Network. Didn't get a chance to talk about this because just a lot of crazy college football, World Series. This is a busy time of year. I mean, hell, NBA season started. NXT had a PLE on Peacock on Saturday night, Halloween Havoc, and this also Halloween Havoc 2025 is going to also be known as the giant middle finger to Tony Khan, because on this show alone, you had. Let's take a look at this. The main event, Ricky Saints is still the NXT champion. Ethan Page is still the NXT North American champion. And then you also have, we can also do this and talk about Blake Monroe, the former Mariah May, is now the NXT Women's North American champion. And a lot of people who were making weird comments about how she's not doing as well as she was when she was in AEW. That's ridiculous. So the three of the top 4 champions in NXT right now are former top level AEW talent. Some people will say I'm not right when I talk about Ricky Saints and Ethan Page. If Tony Khan knew what the fuck he was doing, Ethan Page and Ricky Saints would have been in much better positions in AEW. Mariah May, I mean, you saw immediately, and then she saw the way that things were going there, and she got the fuck out of there. So some people will say, this is an AEW rampage. What I appreciate more than anything, and by another extension, by next week, and this is not an NXT thing, but if we're talking about Tony Fumbles in the year of our Lord 2025, there's a real possibility that next Saturday that Jade Cargill is the WWE Women's Champion. There's a very real possibility that happens at Saturday night's main event against Tiffany Stratton after her heel turn, which I talked about, and some people gave me shit about this, saying that it could potentially inject some new life and maybe kind of save the SmackDown women's division. People were looking at me like saying, Mike, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Bianca Belair is going to come back and she's going to rule over the women's division. I was reading some comments. I was like, guys, Bianca Belair hasn't had a one-on-one women's championship match in 2 years. It's mostly been triple threats and multi-women matches, or she's been in the tag team division. This is exactly what the women's division needs. And then with the NXT division, you can clearly see that Blake Monroe is being positioned to do big-time things. Because now, JC Jane is no longer the women's NXT champion. By the way, congratulations to Tatum Paxley. That is fucking awesome. If you want to talk about a story about perseverance, Tatum Paxley is the personification of that. Because that woman had been booked like a joke, like a jobber, and had been positioned really not like somebody who you would think would be a women's champion. And then she gets into a position like she obviously, has gotten herself over and beloved in that organization, in that performance center. And she wins the women's championship from JC Jane. And, that is the personification of, hey, perseverance and, facing adversity and, not everything seemingly going your way. So good for Tatum Paxley too. So, but you just take a look at NXT and, incorporate, and I know some of the AEW sickos are going to get mad at me for, daring to say that some of these people that have showed up in NXT have done so much better than they did in AEW. What do all three of these people that specifically, holding the three of the 4 most important championships in NXT have in common? They all have charisma. They all have a good character. They are all able to stand on their own 2 feet when they are given good things to work with. And even if you don't, necessarily like some of the stuff that, Ethan Page is doing, like they had a Day of the Dead match and he's ripping off El Hijo Dr. Wagner's mask. Who cares? It was an entertaining match and he's bumping his ass off all over the place. And Ethan Page, honestly, you could put him on the main roster and he'd be ready to go. Same thing with Ricky Saints. You could put him on the main roster and he could work there. But they're staying in NXT because the reality is I think that there would be a realistic possibility of not being able to feed them into a decent storyline on the main roster right now. Because the biggest issue with the main roster right now is, one, there's been a lot of injuries. Obviously, the Seth Rollins injury, I think, has kind of screwed up a lot of things within WWE, and it'll be very interesting to see how that is handled moving forward, to how they piece together the road to WrestleMania. Because now, as we get to the back portion and we get to, November and December and feed into Royal Rumble season, it's a big issue that the World Championship is now, vacated. But NXT, I think one of the things they really have going for them is they've got experienced people that, didn't really get utilized very well in the other place. And they're using their strengths to their advantage. Like Ricky Saints, anybody with a brain could see that guy has got it. He's got it, man. And the charisma and the talent and the personality, like everything there. Same thing with Ethan Page. There's a reason why these guys are working in NXT. And I think one thing that I appreciate about Shawn Michaels and the way that he highlights this and also highlights his women's division more than anything is that he's not scared to take chances and maybe, do stuff that's kind of weird. Here's another thing. Another Tony fumbled example. You've got Jeff Hardy jumping off ladders through 2 tables and people are getting mad saying, man, why are the Hardys? Because the Hardys can still go when they're put in an environment where they can thrive. And they put over maybe a team that I don't really care that much for in Dark State. But you've got the Hardys doing it at a high level late into their 40s. And Jeff Hardy being a fucking maniac is actually good television. And they didn't have an environment to keep him reined in, because you have to have an infrastructure and an environment to keep Jeff Hardy in rein. Because otherwise, Jeff Hardy, God bless him, he's got his own demons that he's got to deal with. So really, this Halloween Havoc show, I watched this and I just was like, man, this is a giant middle finger to Tony Khan, because it is everything that he failed to do with, the Hardys, that he failed to do with Mariah May, even though he did make her the champion, but it wasn't a great run after that happened. Ethan Page, Ricky Saints, like I saw a list. There's like every single person that of the majority of the high profile, or not even high profile, like even Lexis King, they've all won championships. And they've all been presented in a much better way than they were in AEW. And you're seeing how bad creatively and how bad they are from a, character perspective over there in AEW. If you're an AEW fan, you can't tell me with a straight face that they couldn't use Ricky Saints or Ethan Page or Mariah May right now. Especially Mariah May. Blake Monroe. Whatever. But this was eye-opening to me to see this show and to see, 3 of the top 4 championships in this promotion are now held by ex-AEW people. It's really alarming, man. And if you're a sicko, it's becoming harder and harder to really justify this. And if not, you're just a Tony Khan ball washer. That's just what it is. So, anyway, thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.